Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the SportzMoose Media Podcast. Ricky Dean along with Rick Burkett as we get set for high school football games in the Southwest Alabama, Northwest Florida area. And got some big games and some not-so-big games, and we're still in region play, basically the second week of region play kicking off around us. And so we got a lot of good games. Got a lot of good games coming up, and so we just want to kind of highlight some of those and talk our way through them as we work our way toward the mid-season mark. The mid-season, it's hard to believe, but a lot of these schools are working on game number 4 this week. Rick, you know, when the fun starts and these games kick off and get going, these seasons pass by pretty quickly.
Yeah, it always seems like football season goes by pretty fast compared to the rest of the year, and they're getting into the meat of their schedule, and got some good games, like you say, and so looking forward to this week's action.
Yeah, you know, a game that we'll be covering this week will be the Neal game, as we always do on Friday night. WS Neal, they're at 2-1. They lost to Mobile Christian last week, and I mean they took one on the chin against the Leopards. No doubt about that. But they've got a chance to rebound, and still early in the season, only the first region game last week, so the Neal Blue Eagles have a chance to bounce back as they play Monroe County High. This will be homecoming at Neal and East Bruton. And, of course, Monroe County High, they lost to Thomasville last week by a score of 50-30. Monroe County is now 1-1 on the year, so a big game. Matter of fact, it's a good opportunity because after getting kind of manhandled last week, it allows the Blue Eagles a chance to kind of lick their wounds, get their feet back under them, and get back on the winning ways this week.
That's right. WS Neal is a good football team. They played an absolute buzzsaw of a high school football team in Mobile Christian, and they've got time to get some things corrected and get ready for the rest of the season, and who knows, could wind up seeing Mobile Christian again, on down the road. But just like in baseball, when you make an error, you forget about it and get ready for the next play. In football, you take a loss like WS Neal did, you forget about it and get ready for the next game. And they've got an improved Monroe County Tiger team coming into town for homecoming. Monroe County, for the last few years, as you said earlier, just sort of taking it on the chin Friday night after Friday night. But they seem to be pretty improved. They already got a victory, and they played a very tough. They scored a lot of points on a very tough Thomasville team. So
yeah,
they just got to forget about that and get ready for this game for sure.
Yeah, and I like Monroe County. I like their head coach. I had a chance to meet Coach Felder, Coach Shannon Felder, the head coach at Monroe County, and he and I umpired some girls softball together during the high school girls softball season this past year. Super guy. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's a good guy. He's a good football coach, and he's got the Tiger program at Monroe County moving in the right direction.
That's right, he does, and just like we just said, they appear to be an improved team. So WS Neal in that Mobile Christian game, and I'm not saying anything they don't know. They started off, Carter Hodges had been playing just almost mistake-free football for WS Neal, had a couple of interceptions, not just him, but a couple of fumbles and miscues, some penalties at very inopportune times. It looked a lot like our home state team, Alabama, Saturday. So you just got to get those kind of things corrected, and I think they'll be fine. We knew Mobile Christian was a good team. They were a good team last year. I made it all the way to the quarterfinals. So, but they got like we were just talking about. They've got to get ready for an improved Monroe County team for sure.
Let's move down a little bit to Monroe Academy and talk about them. Monroe Academy so far on the year at 2-2. They beat Valiant Cross Academy this past week, 19-14. That game was played in Monroeville. Now the Vols will be traveling this week as they get on the bus and head to Bessemer Academy in Birmingham. Bessemer is 0-3 so far on the year, so hopefully Monroe Academy, the Vols, will be able to pick up their third win of the year against the 0-3 Bessemer Academy team. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. But, you know, the scary thing because you and I used to do Escambia Academy football on the radio. One of the big things that you've got with those AISA schools is it's hard to kind of gauge how your team's going to react after a 3-hour bus ride.
That's right. And even with my children, we traveled in AISA early on when Faith was playing AISA ball at Faith Academy. And it is, I mean, you make a long bus ride like that, and I mean, it can definitely have an effect on you. You kind of have sea legs, so to speak. So with Monroe Academy, they're up and down. Early in the season, they played 2 not so good teams and 2 really good teams in Jackson Academy, last year's defending champions, and Lee Scott Academy, also last year's 3A champions. So they blew out Sparta, and they had a close game against Valiant Cross, but Valiant Cross has got a good team. So Bessemer, I expect Monroe Academy to win this game, bottom line here, even though they've got to travel up there. Bessemer, a lot of tradition up there, a lot of good folks up there, but they're not the team that they've been in the recent past. So I expect Monroe Academy to come away with a W.
Let's head out to Beatrice and talk a little bit about the J.F. Shields Panthers. J.F. Shields so far on the year 0-2. They'll play at McIntosh this week. We've seen McIntosh. McIntosh is not a bad football team either, even though they lost the game at Neal. So Shields is going to be coming off an open date, and so they're going to be able to get their legs under them a little bit. They are primed to pick up their first win of the year, possibly against the Demons, but they better not sleep on them because the Demons are 0-3, but the Demons, 2 of the Demons' losses have been against the Neal Blue Eagles and against the Leroy Bears. They lost at Leroy by a score of 41-0. They've played some really good football teams, but McIntosh didn't look too bad on the field when we saw them that night in East Bruton.
No, they didn't. In fact, that quarterback, if I remember correctly, tall kid, sophomore, but threw some really good passes against WS Neal. I mean, some that would have been hard for anybody to defend. So McIntosh has got potential. J.F. Shields has shown, especially offensively, some improvement this year. So could just be an all around good game. But I expect J.F. Shields maybe to pull out the W on this one.
I know a lot of times what has happened that kind of affects the play at J.F. Shields in the past is simply the number of kids that they dress. I mean, you've got a lot of two-way players, as a matter of fact, I can remember one time when J.U. Blackshear played up at Shields to open the season up, and this was the opening game of the year at Shields, and I think Shields that night only dressed about maybe 14 or 15 kids, and so you've got 11 on offense, 11 on defense, and 4 standing on the sideline. If somebody gets hurt or something like that, you turn around and look. You don't have too many people to grab a hold to and throw in a ball game when you really need somebody to step up.
That's right. J.F. Shields, small school in a small town, a beautiful town, beautiful area up there, north of Monroeville. And it's a very small public school.
Yeah, we need to go up that way and try to hit the state lake if they've opened it back up. I'm not sure that the Monroe County State Lake is opened back up yet, but boy, when they do, we need to hit it and try to get on some of those brim up there. That's
right. Supposedly have big shell crackers up there, and you know how we like those.
No doubt. 3-0 J.U. Blackshear Bulldogs. Wow, that's something that, it's been said before, but Blackshear's playing really good right now. They travel to Chickasaw this week. They've got a region game. The Blackshear Bulldogs beat Francis Marion last week by a score of 48-19. So they opened up region play that last week. This is going to be another big region game. Chickasaw right now is 0-3 on the year, and they lost a close region game last Friday night at St. Luke's by a score of 36-34. So the Blackshear Bulldogs, Coach Wes Sims and that bunch, they're playing pretty good football right now, and they're going to go on the road and hopefully be able to pick up a win against Chickasaw, who traditionally has been a really athletic football team.
And I think Chickasaw still has a pretty good football team. They played a pretty tough schedule to start with. I know they don't have any W's yet. But anything can happen. That's, as they say, that's why you suit up and play the game. Great start to the season to JU Blackshear, and they got a chance to go 4-0, and they probably will, but they'll need to have their helmets on straight for sure.
Let's ease down into Escambia County, Alabama. We'll head to Canoe first, where the Escambia Academy Cougars are 1-3 on this early year, with their only win coming 2 weeks ago against Valiant Cross Academy. The Cougars lost to Clark Prep on August the 31st, and then they lost again last week to Banks Academy. That score in the Banks Academy game was 60-38 up in Birmingham. Not really sure what happened, Rick. I've heard this, and I don't know whether you've heard anything or not. I was asked, as a matter of fact, leaving work today, I was asked by a parent if I had heard anything about what had gone on at Banks Academy last week. Evidently, right close to the end of the game, there was a little scuffle or something where some kids were involved in some fisticuffs on the field, and from what they were telling me today, that Escambia Academy has a couple of kids that are on suspension right now. I don't know whether that came down from the state or whether that's punishment that is being put on them by the coaching staff at Escambia Academy, but it sounds like that the Cougars are going to be a little shorthanded as they travel over to Jackson to take on a very tough and undefeated Jackson Academy team. Jackson Academy is the defending Class 1A AISA champion, and it appears that by every indication that Jackson Academy is poised to make another run at a state title.
Yeah, that's right. Escambia Academy played Banks Academy tough. In fact, had the lead at one point, and just kind of had a defensive meltdown in the second half. And just like we were talking about a while ago, just like making an error in baseball, you got to forget about that and get ready for the next play. Same thing here, because they're about to run into a very good Jackson Academy football team, who was the 1A defending state champions from last year, and Jackson Academy started off this year. They're undefeated, beat a very larger Clark Prep team, and they look the part again this year. I mean, we'll be pulling for the Cougars. I mean, we've got friends over there and all that, but they're going to have to get their minds right, as Luke would say.
That's right. Well, as we stay in the area over there in Escambia County, let's talk about those Blue Devils from Escambia County High School. Hey, Blue Devils are 3-0. They just poached. Notice what I'm doing here. They poached the Satsuma Gators last week as they went over there and just they beat the brakes off of them 46-6, and so a lot of offense by the Blue Devils. And we've talked about this. Really, we've talked about this time and time again early on this year, and I mean, just as we travel and as we discuss football, the best part of this Blue Devil football team, and now they scored 46 points last week against Satsuma, but I tell you where that football team is the best, I believe, is on the defensive side of the football. Yeah,
led by Michael French. They're really good on defense. We kind of had from the inside word on, we had the feeling that their defense was going to be much improved over last year's. They had a very good football team last year, the Atmore did, but the thing that they really worked on improving, and they lost their senior quarterback from last year, but they got Jamarian Robinson at quarterback this year, sophomore, who's got, if he doesn't have 4.4 speed, I'd like to know what his speed is, and that I think it's Tate Henderson. Those boys look extremely fast. In fact, the whole team looks fast, but their defense is much improved. And in fact, they're ranked in the state in scoring defense for high schools right now. And
I saw that number. Now that you mention that, I saw that number. I think they're only giving up like 10 points a game. So
and then scoring plenty, and Satsuma's got a good football team. That wasn't a fluke. Satsuma had won their first two games. Similar size schools, they were 2-0. Atmore was 2-0, and Atmore just put a whooping on them. And And of course, they've got to forget about that now, just like we were saying about errors in the loss. They've got to forget about that and get ready for the next game, because we know that Philip Rivers from St. Michael's, the coach there, and St. Michael's has got a good football team. They're 1-2, but they lost to two very good football teams. So, and they'll be coming to Atmore looking to get them a W.
Yeah, St. Michael's has 2 losses on the year. They lost to a very good Gulf Shores team, 41-20, and then they picked up a win over Chickasaw week 2, 49-18. Now last week they played a very good Bayside Academy team. They lost in a very close ball game against Bayside Academy. That game was in overtime, and final score was 27-21. So the Blue Devils, I would call this is their first really big test of the year, as they will face St. Michael's at home this week. That'll be at Herbert Barnes Stadium in Atmore on Friday night. Big region game, and the Blue Devils with a chance to go 4-0. How long has that been?
I don't know. I would have to get on the Alabama High School Historical Society site and go back, but it's been a while, I think.
Well, the Flomaton Hurricanes, they got to get on the bus Friday night. They got to travel to go to Mobile. They take on Cottage Hill, the Cottage Hill Warriors. Flomaton's got a record of 2-1 so far after their big win, 21-13 last week at home over Hillcrest Evergreen, which was a region game. It looks like they're going to have 2 big road games back-to-back as they go play 0-3 Cottage Hill this week, and then they are on the road again, to quote Willie Nelson, as next week they will play Excel at Excel. Now, the Excel Panthers are 1-1 on the year. They had a week off after losing their first game at BC Rain High School. Now, Excel, they got to strap it on this week. They travel to Mobile. They're going to take on the Leopards of Mobile Christian, and so Excel's going to have to turn it up a notch against Coach Ronnie Cottrell and those Leopards, because we saw them last week. And as we've just kind of walked through what Mobile Christian looked like, dude, that's a good football team.
Yeah, when we saw them walking out onto the field, getting off the bus, which sounds kind of funny because you hear that all the time, but when they got off the bus, we were like, because these boys aren't just slightly big. I mean, even their backs and their corners and stuff are like 6 foot, 6'1". Their defensive line, I mean, we talked about on the radio, and I mean, their defensive line literally averaged 6'3" and above, and averaged 285.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 defensive linemen that were over 300 pounds. And I mean, Neil just couldn't do nothing with them. Mistakes probably doomed Neil more than that did. But you're right, Excel is running into a very good football team when they take on Mobile Christian.
Yeah, when those big defensive linemen get off the bus for Mobile Christian, you know what it kind of reminds me of? Remember the Green Mile when John Coffey stepped out of the back of the truck? I mean, that's what that mental picture had, because remember, the old guard inside the camp there, he was looking out the window. He said, "What'd they do, bust the springs?" And then John Coffey stepped off and the whole truck rose up. That's kind of what the bus does when all them big guys get off the bus for Mobile Christian. Yeah, it's not busted. Right. It's not busted springs. They might have them some big old boys, and they can play a little football too. So that's going to be a big game. That happens in Mobile on Cottage Hill Drive at Mobile Christian. So that'll be a big game to tune into. And speaking of tuning into, that game will be live. It'll be live on WPFL 105.1 FM with Attorney Ernie and White Shoes. They'll have that game from Mobile for you on Friday night. Now, another big game happening right down the road from Flomaton in Bruton. The T.R. Miller Tigers, they're 2-1. Their only loss of the year coming to a very, very good, always good UMS Wright team in Mobile. They're coming off a big road win against Wilcox Central last week by a score of 47-12. The Tigers are 1-0 in 4A Region 1, and they've got a big game this week in Bruton's Municipal Stadium as the Jackson Aggies will bring their 2-0 record to town after a whopping 50-2 home win over the Makos of Gulf Shores High School. So Jackson at T.R. Miller is going to be a war this Friday night, and it's going to kick off at 7 o'clock in Bruton's Municipal Stadium.
Yeah, that's going to be, I don't know how it's going to come out, but you heard my kind of what I said earlier, my prediction about the whole thing. That Jackson team, they are something. So best of luck to T.R. Miller. They're going to have them strapped on this Friday night because Jackson is going to bring a very good football team into town.
Well, it would certainly be a good one to watch, and of course, I think they're live streaming games at T.R. Miller this year, so that may be one that somewhere over the weekend, if I can sit down long enough to get in front of YouTube, I may have to play that one back and just see how it turns out. Right. So don't forget about us now. We got a big game this Friday night as well. We've already talked about the Neal Blue Eagles. As you know, they took one on the chin last week, so they're licking their wounds this week. But it's homecoming week. It is homecoming week in East Bruton at W.S. Neal High School. And the Neal Blue Eagles will take on the Monroe County High School Tigers on homecoming this week. Airtime for us is going to be 6:30 on WBZR, 105.9 FM in Atmore. We'll have a little pregame. Not going to do as much actually talking through pregame this week because one thing we're going to do is we're going to allow them to put some of the festivities of the homecoming stuff that's going on there that they're so proud. A lot of pride there at W.S. Neal, and so we're going to let them kind of have that pregame spot, and we'll air some stuff. We'll talk a little bit, but we're not going to get involved too much in the homecoming activities. But then we'll kick it off at 7 o'clock, and we'll have all the live play-by-play action as the Blue Eagles will take on the Tigers from Monroe County. So that's just going to be about it for us. I tell you, we've got some big games on in the area, and Rick, football season is full blown. The weather is starting to get better, and it's starting to get right. You know, we're now seeing days below 100 degrees, so that's a good thing. As a matter of fact, I was driving home from work this afternoon about 4:30 in the afternoon, and as I was reaching the area up here where I live near Uri, my temperature set about 88 degrees this afternoon, so it's starting to get better, and the longer we get into the season, the things are going to just get better and better. And it's one morning we're going to wake up and we're going to realize, hey, that's football weather right there. So it's all coming. Just hang in there.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. You're right. It's a nice evening this evening, and a little hint of fall in the air, and I can't wait. Personally,
well, you know all the weather prognosticators out there that say we're under global warming. I just read something. Matter of fact, last night I was looking up some stuff, and there's a scientific group that says that we could have one of the worst winters that we've ever had because they're anticipating the formation of another solar vortex that is going to actually kind of just cool things off quite a bit in North America. So I'm not so sure that global warming thing's actually a thing or not, but we'll find out as winter approaches, because they're anticipating this this polar vortex to be something. Okay.
Well, there ain't much we can do about it anyhow, so we'll just have to get ready for it.
That's right. Hey, and I'm one of those that it can't really get too cold for me. You know, I mean, I love it cold, and hopefully it'll be there because after all, that cold, cool, crisp fall air, that's football weather.
That's right, and I like it myself.
All right, Rick, well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you, folks, for tuning in so much. If you listen to this podcast and you like what we're doing, we hope you do. And we do it for you and for your entertainment. Share it with your friends. Share it with people that you know that like high school football. We just want to be a part of what you've got going on each and every Friday night. We try to touch the area schools, and that's what we want to do. We want to positively promote high school football and high school athletics in our area, so we try to touch on these schools and just relay the information as we know it, as we have it, out to you. For my partner, Rick Burkett, I myself, Ricky Dean, you've been listening to the SportzMoose Media Podcast. We'll air another one next week, so make sure you keep it right here as we continue to try to entertain you and give you some information that you can use during your week.